Okay, we're going to read Revelation 8, but let's just step back and take a kind of overview of what we've read thus far. Revelation 1 through 3, Jesus is providing warnings to the bodies of believers in these respective areas. Remember that these are not different churches or denominations, they're different assemblies of believers in one church. So I know that language has been distorted in the world. It wasn't in the Bible. Obviously they knew what they were talking about, but when the harlot Catholic Church established counterfeit Christianity, established itself in the beautiful land, and then the prostitutes that bore out of her created all of these denominations and traditions, we became accustomed to talking about churches as different denominations that are all under Christianity. But God said he doesn't have a divided kingdom. He said that a divided kingdom will not stand. There's no infighting in his church because his church consists of believers who worship him in the spirit and in truth, and they are brought together in unity by his spirit. So even when they maybe disagree on what something means, they come together and they study the word and they pray and they fast until they're brought together by God's Spirit. That's what we've done. And surely it wasn't our own idea. That was done by the Holy Spirit. So I want to make sure that you understand that. Revelation 2 and 3 are not Jesus is not talking to different denominations within some Christianity. That's counterfeit Christianity. Those are that's the harlot Catholic Church and the prostitutes that bore out of her, as is described in Revelation 17:5. So the corrections are provided in technically Revelation 2 and 3. Revelation 1 is really talking about what he's about to do, that he's going to be talking to these angels of these 7 churches in these respective areas, or if it helps you to understand this better, the 7 assemblies of his church in these respective areas. That would be the more correct way to say it, because there's only one church. And you need to know that. Like, you need to be certain about that and understand that as you're reading Revelation, because he's going to be using a woman he's going to liken a woman to a church. There's only one good woman, and she's described in Revelation 12, and that's Zion. So when he's talking about women, not defiling yourself with women, he's not talking about a woman as being the source of defilement. He's saying that they didn't defile themselves with these counterfeit churches. If you have multiple churches, you can bet that they are counterfeit. He also addressed 2 of the assemblies or churches or lampstands, as he refers to them. 2 of the lampstands for whom he did not have a rebuke. I'm going to keep repeating this fact because the witnesses are referred to as the 2 lampstands. And so to be referring to the witnesses as 2 men in sackcloth who are breathing out fire, very literally, that is a misunderstanding of who the witnesses are. The witnesses are 2 bodies of believers that in total are 144,000, and we read about them in chapter 7. They are 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they represent the second 12 of these 24 elders that are seen in the throne room. And yes, they are not literally 12 people, are they? The 12 apostles were literally 12 people, but the witnesses of the end are going throughout the whole world. The 12 apostles were going through Judea, Samaria, Jerusalem, and as Jesus said, that they would go to the ends of the earth. So they were preaching the gospel throughout the world, but they were getting believers in it was coming through the Jews. Witnesses of the very end, and Jesus said to them, "You will be my witnesses." The witnesses of the end are not just coming from Jerusalem, they're coming from the 4 corners of the earth. And it's still a very small number when you consider that these are the only people who are speaking truth at this time in history. How many people are in this world? So we will talk more about the witnesses, but when we get to, for example, Revelation 12, Revelation 11 and 12, but the function of the witnesses is to share their testimony, to call people in, to talk about truth, to say, like, this is not, we've been living in a time of deception. And as is demonstrated in Revelation 12, they are the second criteria. The first is the blood of the Lamb. The second criteria, in order to triumph over the devil. Why does God refer to them as the two witnesses? Because in God's law, two or more witnesses are required in order to establish a matter. And the matter that they're establishing is that Satan is being kicked out of the heavenly realms. So as it stands right now, Satan has not been kicked out of the heavenly realms. He will, in 2.5 months, he will be kicked out of the heavenly realms. Why should that matter to you? Because in 2.5 months, he's going to kill the witnesses. Well, maybe 2.5 months and 10 days, because you remember that in Revelation 2, we read that some of them would be in prison for 10 days and that they needed to be faithful even to the point of death. So in 2.5 months, I will be done with this. I will have fulfilled my duty in my covenant, in my role in the body, in God's house, in his kingdom. And then I may be jailed for 10 days before I'm killed. Remember that he says that in Revelation 2. He says that you're going to be tested by the devil for 10 days in jail. Okay, so don't expect it to happen right after the witnesses are done testifying. You also should be looking at what the Antichrist is doing right now, what this Antichrist system is setting up right now, setting up alligator Alcatraz and detention centers for quote-unquote immigrants who need to be deported, although immigrants, started out with criminal immigrants, then it went to all immigrants, then it went to U.S. citizens who, just have brown skin. Though, as I've mentioned to you, this isn't a race thing, and we don't want to be making it a race thing. There are human beings who will make it a race thing, just like Hitler made the Holocaust a race thing. That was not a race thing. When you look at it fundamentally, it's a spiritual battle. It is a spiritual issue. And right now, although it seems to be, people are making these things race issues, Arabs, Mexicans, etc. Those are the two primary groups, right? Although that's what it's being made about, it's going to quickly become those who have any ideology that goes against the image of the Antichrist, which is counterfeit Israel. Anyone who refuses to worship that image is going into those detention centers. This is not a conspiracy theory, okay? Don't call everything conspiracy this people calls conspiracy. You remember that God says that in his word? Everyone wants to dismiss what is said. I'm not just some YouTuber who is putting out conspiracy theories, but that's how people dismiss what is said in the word. I'm speaking on the word. These prisons are being set up for God's people. And the people setting them up might not even know that they're setting them up for that. I don't know what they know. Ultimately, they're used for judgment, and they're used in order to, as objects of God's wrath, in order to display his glory to the objects of his mercy. Okay, moving on from there. We had Revelation 1 through 3. Revelation 4 was the throne room. The throne room in heaven that he's going to keep going back to. So have some sort of an idea of what is in that throne room, what it represents, because you're going to keep going back there. He'll keep bringing you back there. In Revelation 5, you have worship, the way that heaven or those in the throne room are worshiping Jesus. That's really important. We also saw that in Revelation 4, because if that's the way that he's being worshipped in heaven, that's where we need to bring our hearts. That's how we need to be worshiping him. The other thing that we saw in Revelation 5 is a scroll that had 7 seals, and then in Revelation 6 of those seals were described. So we're still waiting for the 7th seal to be described. In Revelation 7, he spoke about 2 groups of people, the 144,000 who are seen in Revelation 7 as being sealed before the first 4 trumpets blow. Why the first 4? Because at the 5th, they're going to die. This represents the witnesses. What happens at the 5th trumpet? Well, Satan loses his place in heaven. In Revelation 9, you see him falling from the sky, a star falling from the sky. Star is an angel. Look at your key. And he goes into the abyss, has the key to the shaft of the abyss, goes into the abyss, comes out of it, smoke rises. And you see in Revelation 11 that the language, that what is being described in Revelation 9 is what is also being described in Revelation 11 when it says that when the beast rises from the abyss, he's going to overpower and kill the witnesses. Now, does this mean that it's a man? No, we're talking about the devil as the Antichrist. Many Antichrists have come, his kingdom, and the Antichrist that is described in the end is the kingdom. It is this church that is writing government, that the kings of the earth, the important people of the earth are fornicating with her, and these are those who are going to be persecuting and killing God's people. I know the language is peculiar, so I draw your attention to what you see going on in the world. What do you see as this Antichrist? The Antichrist consists of the harlot Catholic Church, which has persecuted and killed God's people. Look at the Inquisition. The prostitutes that bore out of her, that continue in her prostitutions. Christmas, Easter, image of the cross. Saturday and Sabbath. There's no Saturday and Sabbath in the Bible. Tithing was fulfilled through sacrifice. That's being pitched in order to make a marketplace of God. The whole structure of their church, of someone being up at a podium and doing all of this, coveting the olive oil, the wine, and the bread. 1 Corinthians 14 tells you how you are to assemble. Each of you is to bring something. You're not doing that. I know you're not doing that. Because that's not the structure of these prostitutes, of counterfeit Christianity, which is the Antichrist, guys. So when you see Christian Zionism, when you see Christian nationalism, when you see these people doing these things and claiming to do it in the name of Christ, this is the reason why Christ said, many are going to come to me in that day and they're going to say, didn't we do this in your name? Didn't we do that in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me, evildoers, I never knew you. So the implication is they think they're his. They think that they are in him. Remember again, in Revelation 2, when speaking to the church in Smyrna, and Revelation 3, when speaking to the church in Philadelphia, he refers to a group of people who claim that they are Jews, though they are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. What's a Jew, guys? A Jew is one who is circumcised in heart. It's not an ethnic group. It's not a group of people who live in the Middle East. It's not a group of people who even live in certain areas of the United States like New York or Beverly Hills, okay? That's not a Jew. They might call themselves Jews by ethnicity, but that's not the Jew that God is talking about in the Bible. A Jew is one who is circumcised in heart. Not all who are descended from Israel are Israel. Not all who are descended from Abraham are Abraham's children. And so, when he says this, that a Jew is one who is circumcised in heart, and that these people are claiming to be Jews, though they are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And when you read in Revelation 13 that the false prophet of the United States has set up an image and requires everyone to worship it, and that you read in Revelation 17 and elsewhere in Scripture that there's 10 horns that came out of the fourth kingdom of Rome. These are the 10 Germanic tribes that became Western Europe. And you see that, let's test this theory. Let's test the theory that the seventh kingdom is the United States and that the 10 horns are Europe. Because what the word says in Revelation 17 is that the seventh kingdom is going to come for a little while. And then in Revelation 13 it says that kingdom of the false prophet is going to set up an image and require everyone to worship it. And then it's going to give breath to the image, power to the image, to be able to persecute and kill all those who will not worship it. And then the false prophet is also going to essentially blacklist, not allow anyone to buy or sell who will not worship the beast and take its name, the number of its name. And Revelation 17 says that these 10 horns that became Western Europe are also doing the same thing. They have one purpose. They're going to rise to power with the beast, which they have, rose to power with the false prophet. And they have one purpose, which is to hand over their power and authority to the beast. So is the theory tested? Because surely we have to understand what it says in the word, and then we have to test it with what we're seeing, don't we? And everything is adding up. And indeed, he reveals this to us in season. So no one was going to be able to tell us ahead of time what this was going to look like, though many have tried, haven't they? And they are still putting out these false narratives about radical Islam and Russia and all of this stuff, and holding to those narratives. And those narratives are not in the Bible. They're not in the Bible. They are not true. The people espousing these things and who have espoused these things didn't want to wait. They didn't want to wait for God to reveal this in his time. There are some things that we need to sit with and wait until he reveals, until he actually enacts it. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't understand it, that we shouldn't be reading it and be familiar with it so that when it happens, he can say, here it is. And then it's his glory being revealed. God has talked to me about so many things and taught me this very thing. Don't step ahead of me. Don't step ahead of me. I have done some stupid things. You know, he said, I'm going to move the earth. He says this to me, and I hired someone to come in and earthquake-proof my house. And then months later, the COVID shutdowns happened, and I knew exactly what it was. And he said, this is what I was talking about. I've stepped ahead of him like a dum-dum. But also, he had to teach me how to actually stay in step with him. So what I'm not saying is, you know, what I've heard some people say, which is like, oh, well, I guess we aren't going to know that one. We'll just put that in the file for not, you know, something that I'm not going to know. No, you keep pursuing knowing and knowing what it is that he's doing. Just don't get ahead of him. Don't lean on your own understanding and get ahead of him. Know what his word says. And know that if his word is telling you something, it's because he wants you to know. Just don't expect that you're going to know exactly how that's going to go down. Because I'm telling you, 9.999 times out of 10, you are not going to know how it's going to go down, from my personal experience. Unfortunately, we've become accustomed in counterfeit Christianity to psychics who call themselves prophets. They speak out of the delusions of their minds. They're not sitting in the counsel of God. They speak on their own authority for their own glory. They do not lead you to him. They want you to depend on them, and they lead you astray. We also have become accustomed to not having to wait for him or sit in his counsel and using other people to tell us what's going to happen and give us the play-by-play. God doesn't give anybody the play-by-play. He's God. He does this for his glory. He's not yielding his glory to somebody else. So you need to know that if someone is not shepherding you to him and telling you exactly what I'm telling you right now, go to him. Sit in his counsel. Wait on him. If they are not doing that, they are not of him. Okay, so Revelation 7. So Revelation 6, we talked about the seals. Revelation 7, we talked about two groups of people, the 144,000 and the multitude in white robes. One is a number that you can count. God goes to great length to actually break down that number for you and says 12,000 from this tribe and 12,000 from that tribe. He could have just said what I say, which is 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, but he actually breaks it down. Do you think he wants you to know that this is a literal number? Yes, he does. And if that's not enough, the next paragraph he says, then I saw a multitude that no one could count. Oh, okay, so one group you can count and the other group you can't count. So when you hear from false teachers who say things like, this is a figurative number, because they want to include themselves in that group, they're false. They're liars. They don't know what they're talking about. They do not understand the word. They don't take God at his word. 144,000 is a literal number. A multitude that no one can count is a number that no one can count. It's pretty clear. It's not complicated if you just get your information from the word and God's spirit. When you start listening to other people who are not speaking on the word, whom you have not discerned, that's where it starts to get complicated. I promise you, God's spirit is enough. And I know that you're listening to a human being right now, but if you haven't discerned whether I'm from him, with him, and he hasn't given you a witness as to whether I'm speaking the truth, don't listen to me. Go to him first, and then come back to the teachings. Go discern with him first. Otherwise, what you've done is set me up as an idol before him. If you have not discerned whether I'm speaking the truth, don't make the mistake of using me as an idol, because it's not going to fall back on me. I'm giving you the warning. That will be your responsibility for using me incorrectly. All right, so we spoke about the 144,000 being sealed before the first 4 trumpets are blown. In Ezekiel 9, you see the multitude in white robes are being sealed before the first 6 trumpets blow. They're both being sealed before any trumpet blows, okay? So they're both being sealed at the same exact time. But one group is being sealed before the first 4 trumpets blow, the other before the first 6. I've already told you why the witnesses are being sealed before the first 4, because when Satan falls from heaven and the 5th trumpet blows, at that time, they're going to be killed. And as we read in Revelation 2 and 3, actually 3, when speaking to the church in Philadelphia, God says, I'm going to spare you from the hour of trial that I'm going to bring on the entire world to test the inhabitants of the earth. So they've done their part. They've tried to call people in. They've worked out their covenant. People are not coming in, but there is a group that's going to be saved. And the witnesses, you've heard my distress on this channel. You've heard me deeply distressed and citing Isaiah where it says, who has believed our message? To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? You've also heard me citing Isaiah where he's saying that our children are going to be brought to us, and we're going to say, who bore me these? Where did they come from? I was barren and exiled. I was bereaved. Where did these come from? Just like the elder said to John in Revelation 7 when talking about the multitude in white robes, where did they come from? They came out of the great tribulation. So, and just like God says to Ezekiel, that in Ezekiel 14, how much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my 4 dreadful judgments, sword, famine, and wild beast and plague, to kill its men and their animals. Yet there will be some survivors, sons and daughters who will be brought out of it, and they will come to you, and when you see their conduct and their actions, you will be consoled regarding the disaster I have brought on Jerusalem. Every disaster I have brought on it. You will be consoled when you see their conduct and their actions, for you will know that I have done nothing in it without cause, declares the sovereign Lord. So, there are people who are going to be saved, but right now the witnesses are in distress. I mean, they have been crying out to God just the same as I've been crying out to God, going, my goodness, you had me give up everything to do what I'm doing right now, and the only people who are here are my children, and that's no small matter. I'm not minimizing that, but my goodness, how many people claim to know you? How many people claim to love you? How many people claim that the only thing that they want is to be in you, and yet they won't even assemble? Now, so that said, the multitude in white robes are being sealed before the first 6 trumpets blow. Why that? Because Revelation says that when the 7th trumpet is about to blow, the mystery of God will be accomplished. So the mystery of God is the resurrection. That's going to happen before the 7th trumpet blows. So if the multitude in white robes are being saved, and as we read in Revelation 7, they come out of the great tribulation, which I described to you, is between, as Daniel 12 states, between the 1290th day to the 1335th day. That's the great tribulation, the time of great distress that Jesus spoke about in Matthew 24, when the abomination of desolation is set up on the 1290th day. That begins a time of great distress. And that abomination of desolation, by the way, is also referred to as the idol that provokes to jealousy. Why is it referred to as that? Because it provokes God to jealousy. It incites God's jealous wrath. And you think that the Antichrist was bad? You ain't seen nothing yet. This is the time of which Jesus spoke when he said, one will be taken and another left. That is not referring to the resurrection. I know it's cited that way, and it's perpetuated by Hollywood that way, but that is not what he was talking about. He's not coming like a thief for his people. No one's like, yay, the thief is here. Let's meet him in the sky. Jesus is coming like a thief during that period of great distress. And at that time, there's going to be a clear, the word says the Son of Man is going to be revealed, and the man of lawlessness is going to be revealed. That doesn't mean you're going to see him. Satan is spirit. He's not flesh, but you're going to know what's been going on. at that time, because Satan, the Antichrist, through the Antichrist kingdom, is going to be killing God's people. That's why they come out of the Great Tribulation. Jesus is coming like a thief for them. There's going to be a crazy battle going on. And that is not the Battle of Armageddon, I'll have you know. The Battle of Armageddon does not take place until Babylon is fallen. All of that means the resurrection takes place, the bowls of wrath are poured out, the last bowl of wrath, which is the fall of Babylon, occurs, and it's not until that time that the wedding supper of the Lamb takes place, and then Jesus comes with his bride, and then for the Battle of Armageddon. And he throws the false prophet and the Antichrist into the lake of burning sulfur, which is the last death. That's the second death. That's it. No one's coming out of there. He binds Satan for 1,000 years, and the rest, who are the rest? All those who lived prior to the fifth trumpet. All those who died, let's say, prior to the fifth trumpet, who didn't go up in the first resurrection, hadn't been martyred, so like my parents, they will come to life at the second resurrection. But right now, they've been through the bowls of wrath, and they're going to be slain by the double-edged sword that's coming out of the mouth of Christ. That is conviction. It's not an AR-15. It's not a literal sword in his hand. It's coming out of his mouth, guys. That right there should tell you that he's speaking figuratively, and yet counterfeit Christianity is preaching things like, I believe that sword he's carrying is going to be an AR-15. Well, he's not even carrying a sword. It's coming out of his mouth, dum-dum. The word is sharper than a two-edged sword. They are going to go into a period of conviction for 1,000 years while Christ is reigning with his bride, with his priests. And that's the bride. Whoever is saved after that, and all of them have been martyred. Whoever is saved during the second resurrection does not have an inheritance. They're saved only as one escaping the flames. All right, that's a lot of background, but here's one thing that I want to remind you of. In our last study in Revelation 17, we read Ezekiel 9. And when we read Ezekiel 9 about the multitude being sealed, what do you remember of that? Think back. What do you remember about what we read? Because we're about to read something that can get really cumbersome if you don't know that ahead of time, that what he's talking about is killing people in the spiritual. You're about to read things in Revelation 8 about trees being burned up and grass being burned up and mountains falling into the water, into the sea. And you're going to be like, okay, I better watch for this, On the news, I better sign up for those end times weather channels that love to post the thumbnails of like apocalyptic rain in Pasadena, California. They love to clickbait you with that stuff. Don't go there, okay? Let's read Ezekiel 9. Then I heard him call out in a loud voice, "Bring near those who are appointed to execute judgment on the city, each with a weapon in his hand." And I saw 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate. Okay, here in Ezekiel, he's referring to them as 6 men with weapons in their hand. In Revelation 8, he's referring to them as angels with trumpets that they're blowing. They're the same thing. He's just referring to them in a different way. So that you understand, and that those who are pursuing the Holy Spirit is going to put these pieces together for you. He's not spoon feeding you. And when he does this, he's giving you a different aspect of what's going on. Okay? So you hear angel with trumpet, and then you hear the judgment is coming. Now he's referring to them as men with weapons in their hands. Same thing. Same thing. Each with a weapon in his hand, and I saw 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with a deadly weapon in his hand. With them was a man clothed in linen who had a writing kit at his side. They came in and stood beside the bronze altar. Very similar to the description that we read in Revelation 7 when an angel is sealing, putting a seal on the foreheads of the servants of God. Now the glory of the God of Israel went up from above the cherubim where it had been and moved to the threshold of the temple. Then the Lord called to the man clothed in linen who had the writing kit at his side and said to him, "Go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it." Okay, if they're grieving and lamenting the detestable things that are done in it, these are God's people. Don't get freaked out by the language of the mark. A mark does not mean the mark of the beast. As I listened, he said to the others, "Follow him throughout the city and kill, without showing pity or compassion." Okay, what is he doing? Killing. "Slaughter the old men, the young men, and the women, the mothers and the children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Begin at my sanctuary." So they began with the old men who were in front of the temple. So judgment is brought on who first? He's clearing out his house. He's shaving it down. Then he said to them, "Defile the temple and the courts with the slain. Go." So they went out and began killing throughout the city. While they were killing, and I was left alone, I fell face down, crying out, "Alas, sovereign Lord, are you going to destroy the entire remnant of Israel in this outpouring of your wrath on Jerusalem?" He answered me, "The sin of the people of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great. The land is full of bloodshed and the city is full of injustice. They say the Lord has forsaken the land, the Lord does not see. So I will not look on them with pity or spare them, but I will bring down on their heads what they have done." Then the man in linen with the writing kit at his side brought back word saying, "I have done as you have commanded." Okay, there's a lot of people dying right now in these floods and fires and things that God is bringing, earthquakes. There are a lot of people who are dying in the physical. What's worse? What should freak you out worse? Dying in the spirit, in the spirit, like his spirit leaving you. That should freak you out more. He talks about a time of famine coming, not a famine of bread or of thirst for water, but a time of a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. What should freak you out more? Starvation, the killing of the body, or the killing of the soul? The killing of the soul. Now, did you hear anything here about mountains, grass, nature, anything like that? No, you didn't. You heard about him killing and using that even as spiritual symbolism for the killing of the soul. So now we're going to read Revelation 8, and you need to keep that in mind. You need to be aware that that is what we're talking about. We are not talking about global warming, although there is a connection to what we're seeing right now in the earth. And that connection comes from 2 Chronicles chapter 7, which stipulates in our covenant with him that when he starts harming the earth, we're supposed to recognize that it's time to return to him, that we have gotten too far from him, that we are in sin, that we need to repent. But no one seems to recognize that. People think that it's Christian to say things like, we're supposed to be good stewards of the earth. They think that's what we're seeing right now. They don't acknowledge, I've heard pastors say this, they don't acknowledge that what is going on right now is God showing us that we are far from him, that this isn't about the superficial and you know what you're putting on your plants or the a need for EVs and cutting carbon emissions and putting solar panels on our roof. That's not what he's talking about. He said, when I send these things, if my people who are called by my name will return to me and turn from their wicked ways and repent and humble themselves, then I will restore them and I will restore their land. So it's ridiculous that we don't know this. It's ridiculous that most of the people who come to this channel don't even know that they have a covenant with God. A covenant that needs to be fulfilled. Like, you'll honor all your contracts in the world, but you don't honor your contract with God. All right, we've already established that these trumpets are referring to you, your soul, your life. Revelation 8, when he opened the seventh seal. Now we're talking about the seventh seal, the trumpets. There was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. And I saw the seven angels who stand before God, and the seven trumpets were given to them. Another angel who had a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense to offer with the prayers of all God's people on the golden altar in front of the throne. Revelation 1 told you that incense is what? The prayers of God's people. If that's not in your key, put it there. The smoke of the incense, together with the prayer of God's people, went up before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and hurled it on the earth, and there came peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. So what is sort of triggering this? Well, the prayers of God's people. As it says in Ezekiel 9, God's people are grieving and lamenting the detestable things that are being done in Jerusalem. That's what's triggering this. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to sound them. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood. And it was hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up. A third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. Okay, you've been likened to the earth. You've been likened to the trees. You've been likened to the grass. In fact, you're even the salt of the earth. He's even referred to you as land. He's referred to you as an olive tree, a thriving olive tree in Jeremiah. And then Paul talks about us being engrafted into the original olive tree, the natural olive tree. And then he says all people are like grass, and all their faithfulness is like the flowers of the field. The grass withers and the flowers fall because the breath of the Lord blows on them. Surely the people are grass. Okay, that's Isaiah 40, verse 6 through 7. There are many more scriptures, by the way, many more scriptures that you can go and study if you're not convinced that this is what he has likened us to. Feel free, go ahead and do your study. But I've shown you sufficiently in Ezekiel 9 what we're talking about, and I'm citing at least a couple scriptures so that you can remember that this is what God has talked about. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain all ablaze was thrown into the sea. Okay, couple things here. He has talked about the mountains of Israel. When he talks about the mountains of Israel, he's talking about the powers that be. The teachers of the law, the false people putting out falsehood who are in power. God's prophets, not so much, okay? God's servants are the scum of the earth. Paul already established that. The entire Bible already established that. Everybody hates what his servants have to say, particularly his prophets. I was so naive when I first started out talking about these things. Completely naive. Like, I had no idea. I thought this is going to be epic. Everyone's going to want to know the truth. They're going to be so happy to hear the truth. No, they're not. They don't want to hear the message. It is offensive to them. And they love to tell me how to speak, that I'm doing it wrong, without even realizing that many of these people, acknowledging that God has anointed me to speak in a particular way, to speak a truth, that God is the one who holds his servants accountable. Do I need a human being to come and tell me that I should whisper this tenderly in their ear? No, because God, as God tells Ezekiel, they're not going to listen to you because they don't listen to me. Why would he have me whispering this sweet nothing in your ear? It's really stupid, you know? It's really stupid that anyone thinks that way. I thought this way too. That anyone would think this way, given the fact that people hated his prophets to the extent that they killed him. They didn't rush some counterfeit church. Oh, it's prophet day. The prophet is coming. The prophet is coming. Maybe he'll speak a psychic message over me. Maybe he'll speak a blessing over me, and we don't even have the sense to realize that if God wants to bless you, it's because of obedience. It's because you're in relationship with him. Why would he need to send a prophet to speak a blessing over you? When has he ever done that? Prophets are sent to warn and correct when you haven't been listening to him. That's what they're sent for. So, the second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, okay, powers that be, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. Oh, there's actually 3 things here. Okay, so you got the huge mountain, which are powers that be, all ablaze. Remember that when God is cleaning up Joshua, that he says, was not this man a stick snatched from the fire? Okay? If you're all ablaze, it means you are on your way to hell. A burning stick snatched from the fire means he has called you to himself. He has brought you out of the slavery that you sold yourself to. So if he's describing this mountain to be all ablaze, he's letting you know that the powers that be are burning. They're good for nothing. What is the symbolism that he's used? That I'm the vine, you're the branches, and that you must stay connected to me or you're not going to be able to bear any fruit. The vine dresser is going to come around. He's going to see if you're bearing fruit. If you are, he's going to prune you so that you bear more fruit. What else does he say? He says, if you separate from me, you're going to dry up and wither, and you're going to be good for nothing but to throw into the fire. So this shouldn't be complicated for you to understand. A mountain, a power, all ablaze. Surely these people who make a marketplace of him, who are well-liked, well-spoken of in the world. You know, the people who, like, if I dare to say anything about them on a video, you know, I get like the Satan's army on my channel defending them. Who defends me? No one defends me. And I'm not upset by that, because what did Jesus say? Blessed are you when people insult you and speak all kinds of evil about you. They slander you. That's how they treated the prophets before you. Cursed are you when people speak well of you. That's how they treat the false prophets. I am not upset about being in the category I'm in, because this is a temporary category. But their condemnation, their suffering is going to be a permanent one. And those are the very people who make my job very difficult, because they're giving a message to people that people want to hear, that tickles their ears. Oh, they just love it. They soak it up. People hate what I have to say. All right, the third part of the sentence is something that I told you in the second lesson. I think the second lesson, because usually the first is Revelation 17 and Daniel 2. So in the second, I spoke with you about the sea, or the waters, and I told you to write this down in your key. What is the sea? Those of you keeping a key, what is the sea? What are the waters? It says in Revelation 17, actually I said this in the first video because I was talking about Revelation 17, and that's where it defines it. Peoples, languages, multitudes, nations. It's people. So this burning mountain is thrown to the people. And a third of the sea turned into blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died. And a third of the ships were destroyed. Ships, you're going to discover, I think in Revelation 17, ships and merchants, these are those who get rich off of her. So these are those who are essentially working for those counterfeit churches. They are part of the marketplace, and they are benefiting from this structure. All those people that love to, like, you know, set themselves up, and they're like, oh, I work for a church, I handle the money, I usher, I'm a priest, I'm an apostle, I'm a prophet. Like, says who? Really? Like, an apostle? Really? I take that about as seriously as an honorary doctorate. Like, says who? God didn't say that to you. That's some title you're swinging around. Okay, so you see that the powers that be are thrown to the people, and both are dying. Because the word says the prophet will be guilty as well as the one who consults him. That goes for the teachers as well. Remember also that in Revelation 2 and 3, it does say that there are some inside of those churches, inside of those assemblies, who have not soiled their clothes, who are going to be saved. I mean, there's a reason he's giving this warning. He is speaking to people and hoping that they're going to turn to him, that they're going to come out of Babylon, and that Babylon is going to come out of them. Verse 10, the third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. Again, we're not talking about water, we're talking about people. The name of the star is Wormwood, and a third of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter. What do you know of bitter? What do you know of this? We've talked about it. I've done videos on bitter. So if this is not jogging any memory for you, go on the homepage of the channel and type in bitter in the search and listen to the videos in which I've talked about bitter, the curse of bitter water or bitterness. In the Old Testament, there's a curse of bitter water. If a husband suspected his wife of adultery, what is adultery, guys? What is the fulfillment of adultery? Why did God establish adultery? Because he wanted you to understand what it is to fornicate with the enemy of God, with Satan in the world. He's supposed to be your husband. So if you are fornicating with Satan in the world, with the world in general, because the world belongs to Satan. So if you're lukewarm, if you're double-minded, these are the things that he's established, okay? So the curse goes like this. If the woman had, so basically there, you know, like dirt is taken from the floor and she's given this bitter water to drink, and the priest speaks the curse to her, and she has to accept that, okay, if I've been adulterous, then I accept the consequences of my adultery. And then when she drank the bitter water, if she had truly committed adultery, her thigh would waste away. If she was pregnant, she would miscarry. Her stomach would become distended. Like, terrible things would happen to her. But if she had not committed adultery, she wouldn't be exposed for that. So, what do you think is going to happen, or what do you think happens when this star of wormwood, this bitter water, reaches, or this bitter substance turns the waters bitter? They're going to be exposed, because when they turn bitter, what is really in their heart is going to come out, isn't it? There's nothing like that difficulty and hardship to really expose what you're going to do when you're pushed to the limits of your faith. Now, God also talks about in the book of Zechariah that there's a curse that's going out, and it's going to affect all those who are swearing falsely in his name, and it's going to affect the thief. Jesus talked about the thief going into the pen any other way but the gate. If you enter any other way but the gate, you're a thief. Okay, so you think about these pastors, they're not entering through him. They don't sit in his council. They don't obey him. They make up their own rules, and they follow the prostitutions of their harlot mother, the Catholic Church. If you're swearing falsely in his name, you are claiming to belong to him, but you're fornicating with something else. You're an adulterer. And what he says is that he is going to send this curse out to all of the thieves and those who swear falsely in his name. And it's going to enter their house, your house, and it's going to destroy both its timbers and its stones. The fourth angel sounded his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, and also a third of the night. Okay, so in order to understand this one, you've got to remember the story in Genesis about Joseph having that dream. He had a dream that the sun, moon, and stars were going to be bowing down to him, and Jacob responded to him, respectively, sun, moon, and stars, are your mother and I and your brothers really going to bow down to you? So we know what the sun, moon, and stars represent. Sun, Rachel, the favored wife. Moon, Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. Stars are the sons, the 12 tribes of Israel. All of these have been used to describe different aspects of God's church. And when we get to Revelation 12, you're going to see again the representation of the sun, moon, and stars. Zion, the church, is going to be clothed in the sun with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. This is representing God's favored church, his favored wife. This is the first resurrection. Remember, there's a second resurrection, but that's not the wife. Okay, so you have the representation of the sun, moon, and stars, and now you have a representation of the light going out. What does that mean? No longer the light of the world. No longer do you have the Spirit. That's a terrifying thing. And all of these things are happening during the time that the witnesses are here. And why are they happening? They're happening because of the prayers of God's people. Because God's people are grieving and lamenting the detestable things that are done in Jerusalem, particularly the witnesses are lamenting this. Because I don't know any of the witnesses, but I would imagine that they're being drugged through the ringer the way that I'm being drugged through the ringer, and the way that I have given up everything to do what it is that I'm doing and to not yield any results, but for the hope that is before me, that I'm going to see those children and that I'm going to say, who bore me these? I was barren and exiled. Who bore me these? Where did they come from? Okay, that is the first 4 trumpets. Remember that by the time the 5th trumpet blows, that's when the witnesses are going to be killed. So they're not sealed for the 5th trumpet. Verse 13 says, as I watched, I heard an eagle that was flying in midair call out in a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth because of the other trumpet blasts about to be sounded by the other 3 angels. Why is he calling out woe? Because the witnesses have completed their testifying, And now the Antichrist is going to rise and kill the witnesses. And as it says in Revelation 12, he's angry because he knows his time is short and he's going to go after you. Please discern this message with God.